Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video I have a review for you of the brand new premium tier 5 British heavy tank, the Churchill OKE. This is one of two vehicles available today with the update on the 15th of August that has access to a Flamethrower, the other vehicle being the tech tree Czechoslovakian Tier 8 medium tank, the TVP VTU, but this is obviously a lower tier, so a good chance for you to practice having a bit of fun at tier 5 with the new mechanic. And in today's video we're going to be going over to Excel, having a look at the stats of the Churchill OKE, comparing it to the Churchill 1, which is the British tier 5 tech tree heavy tank, and also three other tier 5 premium heavy tanks in the form of the Excelsior, the captured KV1 and the T14. I'll talk you through my commander and equipment setup, the armour of the Churchill OKE, how the Flamethrower mechanic works, and then I have three gameplays for you to demonstrate how this heavy tank performs on the battlefield. But let's have a look at what the tank looks like, and yes, it looks like a Churchill 1, massive tracks, and yeah, extremely slow on the battlefield. And this is the artwork that Wargaming console, World Tanks console, have put up on the website. It looks pretty cool if you ask me, and the visual effects of the actual Flamethrower in action is pretty cool on the battlefield. But we're going to start by having a look at the price and when you can get this vehicle. So as I've just alluded to, you can get it from today, the 15th of August, with the brand new update up until the 12th of September in a flavour of three bundles. You can get the Ultimate Bundle, which comes with equipment, premium time and boosters for 8,200 gold. The Loaded Bundle, which comes with premium time boosters for 6,050 gold, if I can speak. And the tank on its own, 2,700 gold with the base bundle. So not a bad price for a tier 5 premium tank, and you can work up some silver, gold I should say, in the season pass, and this might be a good option for you to test out the brand new mechanic inside World of Tanks console. But we've come over here to Excel, got the stats of the Churchill OKE here on the left and the other four tanks on the right. We're going to start with the bonuses. As it is a premium vehicle, it does earn a silver and XP bonus. Then we're going to get into the raw stats of the vehicle. I believe it is pronounced Churchill OKE. If it's OKE or something different, then let me know in the comments down below. It was designed by Major JM OKE, I believe, and that is why it is named as such. So if you haven't seen my reviews before, green is the best stat, red is the worst, and orange is somewhere in between, and the ones highlighted in yellow are the updated stats with my commander and equipment setup applied, and I'll talk you through that a little later on. But we're going to start with the silver and XP bonus, 40%, same as the Excelsior, not quite as good as the captured KV1 or the T14, and none of these vehicles have a commander XP bonus, and the Churchill 1, being a tech tree vehicle, doesn't have any bonuses at all. But you will make a little bit of silver if you fire mainly standard ammunition. You get through a lot because you have such a quick reload, and when you are bottom tier you really do need to fire some premium to be able to contest top tier heavy tanks, maybe if you're coming up against tier 7 vehicles, but it is nice to have a little bit of a bonus there. So now we're going to get on into the raw stats of these vehicles, and as you can see, hit points wise, the Churchill OKE comes out on top at 900, better than the tech tree Churchill 1 by 30, and much better than the other vehicles, with the captured KV1 coming out bottom with 810 hit points. And it's nice to have that amount of hit points now in tier 5. It means that the battles feel a little bit longer and a little bit more enjoyable in my opinion. Next, view range, and at tier 5 it's not going to be great, but 350 meters for a heavy tank isn't too bad at all. The same as the Churchill 1 and Excelsior. It beats the T14 and the captured KV1, which is the worst, at 310 meters. You can get this level up to a nice range for you to be able to spot for yourself. However, you're extremely slow, as we're going to get onto, so don't expect to be playing Scout Churchill OKE on many maps. In terms of the mobility itself then, 350 engine power with a 8.92 power to weight, which is absolutely god awful, only slightly better than the Churchill 1 by 0.0 whatever. So yeah, pretty much identical to the Churchill 1. extremely slow, very quick, very slow to get going, and yeah, you've really got to think about where you want to be on the battlefield, what flank you want to attack or defend, and think about your moves prior, because it takes very long to get around the battlefield, especially on the larger maps. You can see that the other tanks in this comparison absolutely blow the mobility of the Churchill OKE out of the water. You can only go 25.7 kilometers an hour forwards, same as the Churchill one, miles worse than the other tanks in this comparison. The only sort of saving grace is the reverse speed is the best in this comparison, with the, or joint best with the Churchill one at 14 kilometers an hour. A bit there, that's not much to shout about, and that's not going to be too useful for you. In terms of your whole traverse, 24 degrees a second, not the worst in this comparison, but by no means fantastic. And another saving grace, the turret traverse, 36 degrees a second. The joint best with the Excelsior means you can snap your turret and gun around to tanks that are trying to get around you because you are so slow. So moving the whole turret, you should be able to get your gun around on target to faster, heavy, medium, light tanks and tank destroyers. In terms of the gun then, the primary gun with the Churchill OKE is a 2-pounder gun. It has pretty nice shell velocity on its standard AP and its premium APCR, 1341 meters a second. Your penetration on your standard rounds, 121 millimeters of penetration for 55 alpha damage. Yep, it is that low, but you have an exceptional rate of fire. In terms of your premium APCR rounds, the penetration goes up to 145 millimeters, and in my opinion, you definitely need plenty of these premium rounds to contest when you're mid or bottom tier. And again, that is for 55 alpha damage. So only two flavors of ammunition in AP and APCR rounds. In terms of the other vehicles, as you can see, the shell velocity on the Churchill OKE is the best in this comparison. In terms of the alpha damage, it's the lowest, the best being the Churchill one with 135 alpha damage on its standard and premium and 175 on its HE rounds, that being a 75mm caliber gun. In terms of penetration, 121 millimeters on the Churchill OKE is somewhere in between, not quite as bad as the Excelsior with 91, however it's not as good as the 145 on the Tech Tree vehicle. Usually premiums, or they used to be in the past, worse than their Tech Tree counterparts in terms of penetration. In terms of the premium rounds, again somewhere in the middle, 145, not as good as the 202 on the Churchill one, but it is comparable to the Excelsior, a little bit worse than the captured KV1, and it is better than the T14. In terms of the alpha damages, it does kind of work itself out in terms of the rate of fire and the DPM, as we're going to get on to now. So don't worry too much about this low alpha damage. It just means you are going to have to sit in front of people, and you are going to have to trade and fire as many rounds into them for every one round that they put into you, because if someone's firing 135 damage like the Churchill one with its 75mm gun, you're going to have to put a couple of rounds in to even come close to trading 1 for 1. Next, we're going to get onto the gun handling of this 2-pounder gun. As you can see, 1.7 second aim time, the best in this comparison by quite a distance, meaning that you can get that down to a very nice level when you apply your commander and equipment setup. In terms of accuracy, 0.36, same as the Churchill one. It's not quite as good as the best in this comparison, the captured KV1, but it's better than the T14 and also the Excelsior, and again you can get that down to a very accurate level, especially when you're brawling at mid to close ranges like you should be with this vehicle because of the Flamethrower mechanic as well, and the range is limited. In terms of the rate of fire, this is where this DPM gets pumped up. Have a terrible alpha damage at 55, but you have a rate of fire 37.5 rounds a minute. That means that you reload in 1.6 seconds base. That's without a commander and equipment setup, and you have a DPM of 2062. That DPM is only beaten by the captured KV1, and you beat the other tanks in this comparison in terms of DPM, so you definitely have to just get into those brawling situations and let your gun unload, as well as switching between this primary gun and the Flamethrower. Next, ammunition. As it's such a low alpha damage, it's to be expected. It's going to have a massive ammo capacity, not quite as good as the captured KV1, but 150 rounds, better than the other vehicles. In terms of gun depression, 10 degrees, not as good as the Excelsior, which has 13 degrees gun depression, but it is comparable to the T14 and better than the captured KV-1 and the Churchill one, which is the worst in this comparison, with its 75mm. Lastly, gun elevation, 20 degrees, not as good as the captured KV-1 and the T14's 25, but it is the same as the Excelsior and better than the Churchill one with its 75mm, and yet that's very usable in a number of scenarios. And 10 degrees of gun depression feels very nice on a lot of ridge lines, and it can be very effective only exposing your turret. So now I'm going to tell you about the Flamethrower mechanic and the Flamethrower on the Churchill OKE, and then we will get stuck into my commander and equipment setup and look at what that does to the stats of the Churchill OKE. So to switch between the primary gun and the Flamethrower on the Churchill OKE, it's the same as the multiple weapon system that is available inside the World War II and Cold War game mode. You hold down your ammo select button, in my case the A button on Xbox, and you switch to this Flamethrower. And when you look at the stats of the Flamethrower, it's going to look like an autoloader because it has an interclip reload, shots per clip, but essentially you are holding down your trigger button, and yeah, as long as you hold down, the flame will carry on going for a limited time. So only one round of ammunition called flame with this Flamethrower. It moves at 75 meters a second, so extremely slow, but obviously if you continually pull down your trigger, there will be a steady stream of flame coming from your Flamethrower. 100mm of penetration and 14 damage for every time a part of your flame or one of your shots penetrates. So the aim time 1.7 seconds doesn't really mean anything. It's kind of negligible with this. You're going to be using this very, very up close and personal because you only have a range of 95 meters, as you can see down here. So you have to use it within that range to be able to be effective. 0.4 accuracy. As long as you're that close, you're usually going to be getting your flame over the target. And to be able to aim this Flamethrower, it has no yaw limit, no traverse to the left and right. You have to move the whole of the vehicle to aim, as it is fixed in position. Slightly different with the TVP VTU, as it has a very small yaw limit, but yeah, you've got to move your hull to be able to engage this Flamethrower. The technical rate of fire on this Flamethrower, 426.04 rounds a minute. It takes 5 seconds to reload a whole magazine of Flamethrower, or to reload the flame. In terms of the interclip reload, 0.1 seconds. This is just how they work out how much damage you do with this Flamethrower. And you have 120 shots per magazine, and it takes you 11.9 seconds to unload your whole magazine of your Flamethrower, and you can deal 1680 damage if you penetrate every single bit with your flame. That's not including fires. However, you will be doing variable damage in terms of what thickness of armor you are using your Flamethrower against. If you were to penetrate every single part of your flame, it's a DPM of 5,965, which is absolutely insane, but against lightly armored targets, that is when this will work. And of course, it does depend on whether you're continuously using it and whether you get any fires on your opponents. In terms of how the Flamethrower works, 1,100 ammo capacity, so you have plenty to go through the whole of the battle. In terms of the actual flame, it's got a blast radius of 1.46 meters, a module damage of 7 for every 14 alpha damage you're doing to your opponent, and again that range 95 meters, and it's much easier to show you in the gameplay how this Flamethrower works. It's absolutely fantastic, and it really can rack up the damage, especially when you come up against lightly armored targets and unsuspecting people that don't know about the Flamethrower mechanic. So in terms of my commander and equipment setup, what do I run on the Churchill OKE? Well, in terms of my equipment, I'm boosting that viewing jet with advanced optics, and then I'm going to improve my view range with the ventilation, and that will also help the DPM and everything about this vehicle by 5%. And then the advanced loader to further improve the DPM, get as much out of this primary gun as possible. You could consider using mobility equipment because it's so slow, it doesn't really get up to anything magical, and I'd much rather improve the DPM of this vehicle so I can out-trade my opponents in terms of how much damage I am putting out, because the alpha damage is so low. And next, in terms of my commander, I run 6th Sense, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Steady Aim, Rapid Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Situational Awareness, and Firefighting. So firefighting has recently been updated. It's now a 10% increase to fire extinguishing speed. It means that when I'm brawling with other Churchill Okes, because they're quite a lot at the moment, I will hopefully have the advantage if they're not using this skill. In terms of situational awareness, improving the view range, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, and Born Leader and Sixth Sense is standard, and then 4 gun handling skills to get the most out of this 2-pounder gun. So what has that done, and what will happen if you use the same setup on your Churchill Oak? Well, the view range has gone up to 458 meters, very good for spotting for myself. In terms of mobility, the only thing that's changed, 44.85 degrees a second on the turret now, with the gun handling skills improving that, meaning that you can snap your gun and your turret round much easier. And lastly, in terms of the primary gun, aim times dropped to 1.53 seconds with a 0.28 accuracy. So yeah, very good gun handling indeed, and the DPM has shot up quite dramatically. Rate of fire is now 52.74, reloading in 1.14 seconds for 55 alpha damage, of course, and that means my DPM is now 2,901 from 2,062, and when you use that in conjunction with this Flamethrower, you really can rack up the damage very quickly indeed. So that's it for the stats of the Churchill Oak. I'm now going to take it over to the garage. We're going to have a look at the armour of this vehicle, and then we will get stuck into the gameplay. So I'll see you over in the garage in just a second. So here we are in the garage having a look at the Churchill Oak's armour layout. We're going to go from the thickest to the thinnest parts of the armour and see how this holds up at tier 5. So thickest part is the bit behind the Flamethrower. It is flat, but it's 177mm, and when you're angling at sort of 40 to 45 degrees, this can increase your effective armour up to around 200mm, so 200mm plus penetration to go through when it's angled, but obviously as it's flat, about 177 to 180mm of penetration needed for this part. And yeah, unfortunately it is flat and the lower plate isn't angled particularly well as well. The next section, 120mm, slightly rounded behind the gun, but this can be penetrated. You just want to shoot towards the middle of that section rather than towards the top, because it starts to round off a little bit, but the turret is a massive weak spot on this vehicle, and it's better to shoot the turret than the hull. Next, 114mm of lower plate, slightly angled as you can see, but at an extreme angle you're going to be only increasing it to around 120 to 130mm of effective armour and penetration needed to go through. And then there's that little section there behind that machine gun port. Again, it is flat, very easy to penetrate this section if you have enough penetration to go through. A little bit around that, 110mm. The rest of the front of the turret, as you can see, slightly rounded, 101mm, a big weak spot. If you're firing standard with the Churchill Oak, you can go through more often than not, like a 60 to 75% chance. However, premium will just absolutely butcher the front of this turret. Sides of the turret, 80mm of armour, so nothing to write home about there. The actual sides of this vehicle, as you can see, 63mm, so quite good at side scraping. You can absorb quite a lot through the tracks. As you can see, there's no hole behind it. If you're shooting from the front, you can track it, but you won't be dealing any damage, and you might as well try and side scrape to negate any of the hull armour. As you can see, the tracks stick out, and if you're trying to penetrate from the side, don't go for the front or the rear. As you can see, there's no hole behind it. You'll just track it in place. This can catch quite a lot of people out, so shoot towards the central part, the bit that I highlighted now, the 63mm hull section. Next thing to note is the rear 50mm of armour, and the actual fuel tank there does count as spaced armour, as we're going to have a look at in just a second. The actual lower portion of the side, as you can see, it's below this section here, is a little bit weaker, 38mm, so when angling a little over angled, you can go through this lower section from the side. However, more often than not, these tracks do eat up. The midsection there, on the whole, 38mm, it is sloped backwards at quite an angle, and at sort of mid ranges you will be getting auto ricochet angles. However, if you're above it, this can be a nice easy penetration. Actual fuel tank spaced armour, 28mm, adds on to that 58mm, so if you're going to go up behind with HE or something, shoot below this fuel tank, as I believe it does count as spaced armour from what I can gather. Next, 25mm of rear engine deck armour around the side here, so that's a nice weak point to go through, and the tracks themselves 20mm of spaced armour, but apart from that and a little bits of extra space there's nothing else to write about. The turret is a massive weak spot from the side and also from the front. Try and avoid shooting behind the flamethrower. Try and angle if you're playing it as much as possible to 40-45 degrees. Try and bait people into shooting just your tracks, as there's no hole towards the front and the rear. Shoot centrally if you want to penetrate it from the side. It can side scrape pretty well, but that turret is that massive weak spot, and that's what you want to go for. And yeah, that's all she wrote for the Churchill OKE. So now we're going to head on into the first of 3 gameplays, and I will see you over there in just a second. So you're joining me here in the Churchill OKE. We're on Kasserine on a standard battle. We're about a minute or just over into this battle, and for the first minute we have just been driving into position because this thing is hella slow, and you're going to see the mobility now as we get up to top speed. Absolutely horrific mobility. You want to be very careful when you're on a map like this that you don't get caught out in the open of the battlefield, because you will get taken out very, very quickly indeed. So try and move in the low ground, move as quickly as possible, have a good idea where you want to go on the battlefield, what parts of the map you want to protect or attack. And if you're going to go back to defender base or something like that, you want to make sure you get back as quickly as possible and start making moves. Don't hang around, because it takes you a long time to get around the battlefield. But we've come up here on the top, and I'm pretty confident of advancing over these ridge lines. As you can see, the 10 degrees of gun depression feels quite nice with the Churchill OKE, and the 10 degrees is all around the vehicle. We're taking a little bit of damage from that looks, but we have a nice 900 hit points, and I'm just going to be firing a few on the move, just hopeful because we have so much ammunition. I'm going to try and get into this little dip here so I can protect any tanks that might try to get some crossfire on my tanks that are down in the little canyon area. Just looking for shell tracers, and I'm pretty confident in the armour, especially in a matchup like this where I believe we are top tier. And yeah, you can ricochet quite a few rounds, especially from lower tiered light tanks and medium tanks. Going to be a little bit wary of this tank above me, this Valentine. And now you can see the great gun handling, rapid fire. We managed to take him out firing AP rounds there. And shell velocity is actually really nice on both of these rounds. At tier 5, 1341 meters a second is very good for practicing giving lead at mid to long ranges, because you don't have to give an awful lot and you can snap shells in quite nicely. It's just a shame it's only 55 alpha damage as we try and fire at this for a 1, I believe. And now we're going to advance over this ridge line and hopefully catch some people out. And sometimes you're playing catch up in this vehicle, or more often than not you are. Now we're going to sit on this ridge line, and now we're not firing and getting spotted, so we can just sit on this ridge. That's a key mistake a lot of players make, is not investing in view range early on, and if you invest, you can absolutely wipe the floor with opposition that just can't see you and don't know about the vision mechanics inside World of Tanks console. But we fired quite a bit, and we're only up to 476 damage with 103 assistance. You can see you have to really get this gun going to deal massive amounts of damage, and in the 3 gameplays you are going to see today, they're not going to be absolutely spectacular games, but they're going to be pretty decent for tier 5, enough to be able to have an influence on the battle and have a good victory. So you haven't seen the flamethrower mechanic in action yet. You really do have to get in that 95 meters range to be able to use it, and to aim you do have to move your hull. You can't move your turret or anything like that. You have to move your hull. Gonna pop over this ridge, 10 degrees more than enough, and yeah, when you get someone tracked with low track health and you just continuously fire into their tracks, he can't spot me because there's no part of his tank that spot me. Now we can turn our attention to the 2 tanks in the center of this map. So you're going to be seeing a lot of the primary gun. There's not an awful lot of situations where you use the flamethrower unless you are brawling, but when you do, it really does rack up your damage, and you can absolutely decimate someone's crew with fires, module damage, and it is absolutely hilarious to use. It's a really fun mechanic and quite well implemented, I believe. It's not overpowered. Probably is annoying to play against, but there's enough weak spots on this tank and the TVP VTU to be able to take them out pretty damn quickly. So we fortunately absorb a shell there into our gun, and now we can just sit here. We're angled and we can just absolutely butcher this tier 5 heavy tank right through his lower plate. We've damaged his engine, and yeah, you can see the damage racking up very quickly with this nice DPM. We've got mine up to 2,901 DPM, and we wreck that VK 3001H very quickly. Now turning our attention to this Panzer 4H, and because you move so slowly, and because I use the run and gun commander skill, very accurate on the move, auto locking on the move whilst you're moving and you don't mind getting spotted, you might as well. And now this is the Flamethrower, so we hold down that ammo select button and now we're just absolutely blasting this tank. And you can see those little 14, 14, 14, 44, and we set that Panzer 4H on fire, taking our damage total to 2,300, and I'm willing just to trade there. And this Flamethrower reloads so quickly, and when you get into those brawling locations using the Flamethrower, it's absolutely hilarious and a lot of fun. So we are capturing the base, probably a wise move, as it's going to take me a long time to get where I need to go. We've got 5 kills, we've bounced a pretty hefty amount of damage, 2,390 damage and 103 assistance there. So that's a victory on Kasserine. We finish in the MVP slot. We make a loss because I fired many premium rounds there, just because I wanted to guarantee the damage. High caliber, 1661 basic speed, only a second class, so obviously people playing this very well on opening day. That's it for the first gameplay. We're now going to skip on to the second one, so I'll see you over there in just a second. So here we are in the second gameplay of today's video, and we are here on Vineyards, and it is a team destruction battle. I've cut out the first minute of this game because it's just us getting into position, and if you hate slow tanks, this definitely isn't the premium for you. But if you can put up with it and wait for those moments when you can get into those engagements, you can have a lot of fun. And if you just want to test out the Flamethrower mechanic, you can make your way up to the TVP VTU, the Tier 8 Czechoslovakian Tech Tree medium tank. So we've got an enemy Churchill OKE there, and we're going to fire our flame first. We're going to carry on firing our flame. You could switch now to the primary gun and carry on firing, but I'm going to carry on because we managed to get 2 fires there. He's not aiming correctly, and we're now going to unload into the front of his hull with premium rounds. Sorry for the premium span in some of these games, but I don't really mind losing the silver, and I'd rather have the extra competitive over tanks that have a little bit of armour. However, the penetration is pretty decent on the AP rounds, and yeah, probably not necessary. But in that short space of time, we only lost around 250 hit points, slightly more. And we do have a damaged engine, but we do have a kill and 953 hit points. And yeah, that fire mechanic, very fun to use and absolutely hilarious. And now we're just waiting to see if this heavy tank comes around, priming our Flamethrower there, moving our hull to aim, and he doesn't look like he's going to oblige, so we're going to turn around, fire a bit prematurely, just a bit too fun. And yeah, we're going to go for a reload and now advanced down this H line into this sort of brawling area of this map. And as you can see, we are up by 7 tanks, so I want to try and get as much out of the rest of this game as possible. And in the Churchill OKE, you usually find that you're just chasing that damage, especially on sort of medium or large maps. On city maps, you can definitely put in a good shift, but now it's a lot harder to use this tank with all the open maps and faster tanks that are around. But again, just Flamethrower in this Panzer B2, just going to toast him up a little bit. And yeah, I think he's completely barbecued there, and now we can carry on. Seeing the great on the move accuracy because you're so blooming slow, and we're just going to fire at this artillery on the move. Great shell velocity, great accuracy on the move. Might as well, you've got plenty of ammunition. I'm still loading the APCR, probably just have forgot to actually change it by this point, and now we're just looking for any scrap of damage that we can. A very fun vehicle, probably worth it for the price that it is. It's not sort of ridiculously expensive or anything like that, and for a new mechanic, pretty well implemented and quite fun. Up to 2 kills in this game, 1,354 assistance and 503 assistance. Just going to angle whilst we're on the move, wiggling side to side, trying to get the most out of our whole armour and absorb shells into our tracks. We spot out this bulwark there, the mercenary, and now we can unload this 2-pounder gun on this Hetzer. And yeah, I'm pretty healthy now. I'm happy just to sit in front of these tanks and take it. And yeah, we rack up a nice lot of damage there in pretty quick succession with this rapid fire gun. And the bulwark's making an escape. Hopefully we can get at least 1 or 2 shots into this tank before the end of this battle. And yeah, chasing the damage, you're going to have to get used to that in this vehicle. It's extremely slow, even if you use the mobility equipment. So we're now firing at the bulwark. We still got our APCR loaded, and we're managing to go straight through his hull as he went down, picking up another kill there, making that 4 kills, I believe, for this battle. We finished in 2nd place behind the captured KV-1, which we compared earlier. We did get that 4 kills, 2nd class again, 1766 experience, damage, I should say, 636 assistance. We blocked 110. Unfortunately, make a loss again. This can become quite expensive if you do play it like me, with the premium consumable and fire quite a lot of premium. However, I think it's more one for the collectors and one for people that just want to have a bit of fun with the new flamethrower mechanic. So that's it for the 2nd game. Only a 4 minutes 45-second game there. We're now going to head on into the 3rd and final gameplay of today's video. So we are now into the 3rd and final gameplay of today's video. We're here finally on a city map. We're on the reintroduced Ruinberg. We're in a standard battle, and we are now come to this location in D2 where we're just going to unload on these higher tier medium and heavy tanks with the great DPM that this gun has. I could advance a little bit more forward in order to be able to use the flamethrower. At this moment we're slightly beyond the range that we can use at that 95 meters. However, I didn't want to get caught out. As you can see, tanks are hiding a little bit behind me, but now I feel confident once we've taken out a tank from this situation, we can advance forward and yeah, unload on this 3002M, firing at the sort of range there with this flamethrower, but much better when you get really close, around sort of 50 meters. Then you really start to feel like it's penetrating with that 100 millimeters of penetration that is on the flamethrower. So now we're going to go around this corner. I'm pretty confident in this matchup, and you can see a lot of auto lock in here, just lots of options in front of me. Probably should aim, but I again am firing the premium APCR. I carry plenty of them. I carry 75 rounds of AP and 75 rounds of APCR, just for those matchups when you get against tier 7s and tier 6s that you feel like you need the extra penetration. And I don't mind losing a bit of silver, but yeah, definitely not worth it when you're firing it against artillery. It could come back to bite me in a longer battle, but yeah, I want to try and get as much damage out as possible, and the main purpose of this video is to show you that flamethrower mechanic and what you can do when you combine it in conjunction with this pretty damn decent 2-pounder gun. So we're going to come around the corner now, OI experimental, and we're going to just burn you up a little bit, toast you up, put you on the barbecue. Hopefully we're going to set you on fire, deal some module damage. We managed to swing around there, and you can see I'm aiming with the hull, and yeah, we dealt a lot of damage there, up to nearly 2k damage in this game, using the 10 degrees of gun depression to take out that OI experimental. And now it's just this M4 left, and the flamethrower reloads so damn quickly. If we wanted to use it again now, I'm sure we could. There we go. We use it just to finish off this M4. Why not? And a little nudge as well as we pick up our 2nd kill of this battle. And yeah, it's a really fun mechanic. I don't think it's too crazy, as there's not too many tanks that have it. It's just a bit of a novelty and something different for the game, and I think that it actually does make this tank work very well. Without it, it will be very frustrating because of the really slow mobility. Maybe if you don't like slow tanks, you'll want to go for that TVP VTU, the Tech Tree Czechoslovakian tier 8, and then you get a flavour of the new mechanic, and you have a bit of mobility as well with higher tier gameplay. But yeah, very fun. Penetration beautiful on these premium rounds. And yeah, we go through the AT2 there, get an extra bit of damage, and that's all she wrote for this gameplay and this video, where we finish in the MVP slot. We do lose some silver again. We get the high caliber 2nd class with 1588 base XP, 2 kills, 2.4k direct damage. We blocked 620 and 44 direct hits. Yeah, really is rapid fire with the Churchill OKE. So I hope you've enjoyed today's review of this tank. Let me know in the comments down below, and leave a like if you liked this video. I'll be getting hopefully a video out on the brand new Spirit of War skin, Stritzvan K, and also the TPP VTU with the flamethrower. Until then, I hope you have a great evening. Thank you very much for your support. I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.